Welcome back to the Lightspeed Investing podcast. We've got Tim Melanson. He is the founder and podcast host of Work at Home Rockstar, where he interviews successful entrepreneurs that dedicate their work from their home. How are you doing today, Tim?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast today.
Of course, pleasure having you back. And today I'm super excited because not only do we get to talk about your products and services that you offer, but more importantly, the way you structured your business so that you can be a success. And a success in your own terms is minimally speaking, having the ability to pay the bills, right?
Yep. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to talk about business today. I put my college shirt on. I'm all business this time.
Alrighty. So first and foremost, let me introduce you a little bit to the audience, right? You are a subject matter expert in website building and digital marketing, but there is a special sauce and maybe multiple special sauces that sets you apart. You want to talk about, what it is in regards to maybe your background, how you service your clients, how you go about presenting yourself.
Yeah, I have a really unique background. It all started off in tech. I have a degree in computer science. So I was a programmer for a large company sitting in a cubicle. That's where it started.
Mhm.
And then because tech was so volatile at the time, I wanted to dabble in some other stuff. And so I ended up joining some network marketing companies, some multi-level marketing companies, and growing a business there and actually did quite well with it. But basically that gave me a whole new world of understanding people, and understanding business in general. And so, I learned a lot about sales, a lot about communicating with other people. And then what ended up happening is that these kinds of worlds collided eventually, where I ended up finding a client that was looking for a website. At the time, I was actually trying to build my marketing company, but I'm like, you know what? I got some time. Let me build you a website. You seem like a cool guy. And by the end of it, he says, you know what, Tim, you got something that I haven't seen in other tech people. Normally, when I have a tech person that's going to build some tech for me, they're very technical, but you actually understand the sales, you understand the marketing, you understand what I'm trying to do, and you actually directed me on some pretty good ideas on how I can build my own business. And I think that you probably have a future in this. If you want, I would love to refer you to a few people. And that's really where it got started with the business. So
Right.
I don't think there's a whole lot of tech people that have that kind of other side. And then on top of it, I'm a musician. So the creativity, you tend to have different type of creativity when you're a tech person. So I think that's where I try to leverage that when I'm talking to my clients, and I try to focus on a lot about, like, one of the main questions I ask, and actually sometimes it throws people off when they come to me looking for a website, is why do you think you need a website?
Mhm.
I don't think you get that very often from a website person. They're just like, yeah, sure, here we go. I'm like, no, I want to talk a little bit more about why you think you need a website, because maybe you don't, right?
Right. No, and I love that. And also, from what you shared with me backstage, you're very intentional about creating a website that actually does something, right? You
Mhm.
want to speak about that?
Yeah, so I think a website should be a roadmap to whatever it is you want them to see. And I think people aren't necessarily always intentional with the way they build a website. I think people tend to build a website because, I mean, we live in, you know, 2024. Like, you need a website. Of course you need a website. So they're just like, I just need a website. And that's all they're thinking about. They just, kind of throw a website up there. And I remember the first website that I built for my own business. And because of the that I was, in touch with all these other business people, I went and I asked for some feedback. And one of the guys looked at my website and he goes, I don't understand a word you just wrote on that website. I just went off on all my technical skills, right? And he says, and the irony of it is that I'm actually one of your clients. I don't understand that. I wouldn't have hired you if I saw this website first. And I went, oh, okay, just light bulb moment for me. I was like, okay, so the customers that are looking at your website may not actually understand a word that you're saying. And how are you going to get conversion on that? A lot
Mhm.
of people think that the way to get more leads in their business or to grow their business is to throw more money at the marketing, throw more money at leads, or get more traffic to their website. That's all fine. However, if the website itself doesn't convert to whatever you want it to convert to, then that's just wasted money. And so my focus specifically is not on the throwing more money at ads. My focus is specifically on I want to understand your business. I want to understand what you want out of your website. I want to know what you want to happen once someone hits that website. And I want to make sure that it's a clear path. People don't have very much attention span these days, so you got to make sure that you quickly get them to the place you want them to get to.
I love that. And do you mind, elaborating, because we're kind of talking about it from an abstract and theoretical standpoint, like some clients that you've worked with, right? You talked about how you have people that you've created stores for. So obviously, in that case, they want to be able to, present their maybe clothing or inventory in a compelling way so that people purchase right then and there, right? Where on the other side, you have helped coaches build
Yeah.
up their website for coaching purposes. So how do you kind of go about, the different modalities there?
Yeah, like so every site, yeah, like you say, every site is different, and that's why a lot of the time is spent figuring out what it is you want them to do. But yeah, the common thing about them all is that you want whoever get there to do it quickly. Now, when it's a service provider, like so, a store is I think the store is a fair bit easier because either you want the shirt or you don't, right? And yes, okay, you need it to be organized in a way that people can find things quickly, and that's really the most important thing about a store is to make sure that people can find what they want. You got lots of good search features and all that stuff. For service providers, it's a little more complicated because it tends to be that people don't necessarily come to your site ready to buy something. No, they're trying to find out a little bit about you. So there's sort of like a this weird process you have to take them through where you have to
Customer's journey.
yes, the
Yeah.
customer's journey. You've got to teach them enough about you, but also have lots of nice calls to action because you never know what's going to catch them, right? And also, I mean, you also have to think about the perspective of let's say that you are a speaker or you're out there on podcasts
Okay.
possible that someone might be ready to go. Someone might jump on your website right now, having just heard you on a podcast, and be like, "Yeah, I want in." Well, you have to have them a way for them to get that to that buy button quickly or that schedule a call button quickly. Otherwise, you're going to lose them. And so there's a lot of different strategies you can use in order to do that. But really, what it comes down to is in the service industry, what I would suggest for anybody who does services, I think getting them on a phone call is the best way to go.
Yep.
And once you get to the point where you're too busy to take on phone calls because there's so many people calling you, fine. Then you can drop on your prices, put a cart, and get them to buy right away. But really, it's going to take you a little bit of time to get to that point. I think that we have to sort of humble ourselves and go, okay, I think this person before they're going to drop, X amount of dollars on a coaching program that's going to last so much time, it's going to change their lives. We need to actually make sure that they understand who you are, what you do, and why they should actually, hire you and as opposed to everybody else, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And Tim, just from talking with you, there's definitely a different sense of substance and depth that you bring to the conversation, right? Which
Thank you.
is probably why you are able to do what you do, as opposed to being just a bland website builder and marketer like the rest of them out there. So, one thing that really stuck out to me when you and I talked backstage was you make sure that the reason why your clients sign on with you, right, in a recurring capacity is because you help take their frustrations out, right? And you're kind of more maybe talking from the tech side of things. I love that. That was something that really stuck out to me. Why don't you share with the audience, what your attention to detail there is?
Yeah, I think in all aspects of my business, it's taking the frustration out. And
Mhm.
because tech, oh man, tech is it seems like either you got it or you don't, right? And we're out here trying to build businesses. We don't have time to mess around with any of these nagging tech issues. And one of the things that I think that I do really well is that I'm able to come up with analogy. Hey, let's talk about the podcast for a second, right?
Yeah.
I love creating analogies. I like taking something that you understand and then explaining that tech part of it with the thing that you already understand.
Mhm.
And so I think that I do that quite often with my clients is, when they're experiencing something or when something's down or there's a website outage or whatever it happens to be, or, they're talking about domains versus website hosting, like all these things, I'll create these analogies that help them understand what
Mhm.
I'm doing. And I think that just makes people feel like, okay, it's one of those things where oftentimes once I do that once or twice, they don't even want to hear it anymore. They're like, no, 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 I trust you. Just go do it. And I'm trying to explain it to them still. But I think that once you sort of explain to people that you know what you're talking about because they understand what you're trying to accomplish, they feel a lot more comfortable with you. And being able to be a valuable part of someone's team where you take all their frustrations away from that technological aspect, and all they have to do is send you an email or book a call with you. One of the things that I do really often is I do these live calls. I book a Zoom session with them, and we actually go through their problem with them. They show me the problem. I help them fix the problem. Sometimes they want to know how to fix it for themselves because they can go fix it over and over again. Sometimes they just want it fixed. Right?
You're very
Uh,
hands-on and you're reachable, it sounds like. And you also obviously help take care of the solution. Just talking with you, I think I've identified four pillars that really has allowed your business to be different. So first and foremost, you have harmonized both the logical brain and the creative brain, right? You being a musician and you being, someone who is computer engineering trained, right? But then on top of that, you have in the middle of that 10 years of marketing and sales experience. So you know how to deal with people effectively. And I think, the X factor that makes it, you know, favor a favor and an advantage for yourself is how genuine you are, right? So really, I think the main question we should ask ourselves is, why, did a computer engineer have the impetus to be immersed in marketing and sales for 10 years, right? And then, decide to blend all of that together with the creativity of being a musician as well.
Well, it's funny. I'm just interested in all these different things. I think I like to solve problems, and you know what? I think that's what it comes down to. So at first, it was solving these technological problems. It was the programming. It was all the logic in programming. All this. That was really, really getting me going. But then when I got into network marketing, when I got into the sales aspect of it, people are so much more complicated than the computers were. And I think it just got me going. I was just like, you know what? I gotta figure this out. Like, why is it that they don't talk the same way that we do, or they don't
I don't
act the
know,
same
man.
way?
I feel like some people would say computers are more complicated than people are, but hey.
Oh, people
Yeah.
are way more complicated than computers. I mean, I guess that's because I think my brain works more with
Yeah, no,
computers.
it's just
So,
funny hearing that. Like, I can actually see both sides, like people and their emotions, and
oh,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, right.
And so it just
So,
it just got me interested in learning that. And I had some really great mentors around me they were all salespeople, like like first and foremost. So, they were kind of like the same as what you're just saying. That's the easy part, man. Like, what
that's
you do
so
with the
fun.
computers, that's the hard part. And I'm like,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
I want to figure it out too.
That's hilarious. So at least we've identified, I think you have a love and passion for solving problems,
Mhm.
and then you've went on to basically, combine three things that helps you set, that actually helps set you apart, which is combining the computer engineering, logical mind with the marketing and sales background and the artsy side of being a musician, right? And when you minimally speaking, combine two unique things, you get a pretty strong potion. And here you're doing three. So now that I get now that I have a better understanding, it all makes sense. Because I was like, man, you're obviously a little bit different, but what is your secret sauce, right? And I think we've dissected that. So we are running out of time here today, Tim. The last thing I want to talk about is, also your unique approach of being able to generate leads naturally and organically without having to rely on paid advertising. You want to speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. So, what I did is it's through the podcast, and I would like if anybody has this opportunity, I would love for them to do it because really, I chose to do a podcast that the guests on my podcast, as well as the listeners of my podcast, would be in my target market. And I think that's super important. Like, because if you nowadays, and we talked about this on the last episode, the best way to market nowadays is through content. And anybody can create content, anybody can do it.
Right.
So if you are going to create some content for your business, why not create content that is targeted directly towards your target market in any way possible.
Mhm.
And if you can do a guest show where you could bring somebody on and they are a potential client for you, well,
Mhm.
then that's just a win-win. And for me, it's worked out really, really well because it's the guests that I build the better relationship with.
Mhm.
The the listeners, sometimes I don't even know. I mean, they'll send me a message and saying, "Hey, I love your podcast," and that's great. But the guest, I actually have an hour of conversation with them. I get to know who they are.
Yes, you do.
And we talked about this earlier. I because my mission is to help people build a business, I'm very intent on trying to find out what it is that they did to get their business off the ground. And let's face it, people love talking about the successes of their business. And so, it's a topic that we can really, really communicate on. And through that conversation, we get to know each other. We get to know that, hey, we're both doing these things. And I get to find out a little bit more about their business and whether I'm a potential person that could work with them. But I don't like, and we talked about this earlier. One thing that I could do better is I probably could actually follow up a little bit better with them. But the reason why I don't is because I don't want to make it about that. I want to make it about them. I really, really genuinely want to make it about their business. And if it just so happens that they're looking for somebody like me, well, then all I do is at the end of every podcast, I say, "Hey, by the way, this didn't really come up in our podcast, but I build websites, I do tech support, I do branding. If you're looking for any of those types of things, just let me know." And I mentioned earlier, I think it's about 10 to 15% of the people that are on my podcast will say, "Actually, I am. Let's book a call." And I get a call booked right then and there. So, if you can do that, like for your business, if anybody's listening to this, then do it because it really is a great way to build. And a lot of people who are building businesses, if you're building as a coach, well, then you're already good with people. So building a podcast and talking is nothing. It was harder for me. I'm a tech person and I have to talk to people. But for a lot of people, doing a podcast, it takes a lot of the pressure off you because now you're talking to somebody else.
Absolutely. And I'm definitely with that. And by the way, Tim, how long have you been doing your podcast?
I've been doing my podcast since 2015. So
2015. Yeah, see, there you go. So you've built a lot of traction and planted a lot of seeds now.
yeah, I've definitely put a lot of traction into
Almost
it.
10 years, man. Almost
I
10 years.
know, I know, it's incredible. I did take a pretty big break in the middle. I did, I think, 100 episodes, and then I took a break, and then I
I see.
started it back up again in 2020 when the
Oh, I see.
lockdown
And you're back
started.
up to what, over 300 now, right? I think.
I'm up to, I think I'm over 300 episodes now.
Well, hey, congratulations on everything. Thank you so much for being a three-peat guest on my podcast. That doesn't happen to everyone. It only happens when you have something special to offer, so I thank you so much. And of course, talking about your podcast, this is a great way to remind the audience what is the best way to get a hold of you, and especially if they want to listen to your content, right, where you interview people who have been able to be successful with their work from home endeavors as an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much, Philip, for having me on this podcast. It's been a lot of fun, actually. But yeah, if you want to get a hold of me, go to workathomerockstar.com. You can catch me on YouTube as well. I've got the show. The last season is on video there. Or you can just email me at tim@workathomerockstar.com and I'll respond there.
Tim at work@homerockstar.com. You heard it here. And Tim, thank you again for being a valued guest. I appreciate you and I hope you have a great day.
You too.
Yep. See you around, man.